Welcome back to JamesCarvin.com. I must tell you what's going on with the Supermama and Superpapa stuff, and I'll get right to it. First, those are acronyms that I find very useful in setting up categories of thought that you'll remember. That's what acronyms are for. We were talking about a robot of all things, and now let me explain why I've been obsessing over the robot that builds itself, that has its ways of improving its own software programs, and learning and accessing the entire human database of knowledge, and building its own parts and maybe sending out its nanobots and all of this to achieve its own purposes and being self-willed because it's programming itself. Why? Why did I do that? Well, because I care about the human experience and I want us to survive and live well. And technology is starting to come in and do a lot of things to people. And I care about people. So that's why I started that series on Supermama, the self-upgrading, planet engineering robot, maturing algorithms, maximizing awesomeness. Assuming that if any robot was able to ever think for itself, it would have to decide what it needed to do and determine that maximizing awesomeness is the reason to be. You should be looking for your personal way of maximizing your awesomeness, shouldn't you? That's what that was about. And it gets a little political because what about if the robot starts controlling all of the governments? It would probably be a better thing given how messed up the governments actually are. But we don't necessarily trust anybody, and we're not really necessarily going to trust a robot that doesn't necessarily think that human beings are of great value. Now, I was speculating about this type of robot last episode and wanted to explain to you why I believed something sort of scary sounding, and that is that this robot had already been turned on and it already was operating. And it's already upgrading itself. It's already being built, but you don't see it. Or do you? Now, I don't want to spook you out because that's not what this is about. These are acronyms. And these are possibilities, and what we're doing here is we're talking about the stuff that could be. And in this episode, I want to talk to you about Superpapa. Superpapa is another acronym I'm using to describe something that's important to me, but there's a completely different reason. So I can give you the acronym, but trust me, every word in this acronym is there for a really good reason. And Superpapa has nothing to do with robots. Superpapa is nothing but the truth. And so this is not politics, this is not governments, this is not robots. This is another acronym describing something that's very important to me, which is the purpose of life and how it is that we got here. A lot of people don't care about that because they can't figure it out, and so they say, well, it doesn't really matter. I'll just deal with the stuff that day-to-day stuff that matters to me personally. I would like for you to consider whether maybe the purpose of life should be affecting your day-to-day life. And we'll get to that. But first, what is Superpapa? Superpapa is the truth itself. A lot of people want to know, and other people don't care, about how we got here. Some people think that time is just linear and goes back forever. And other people think that time had a beginning and it's part of the space-time continuum. Some people that think that somehow the Big Bang was caused by some future event so that time goes in some sort of a twisted circle and starts back at the beginning again, and so time always is. People have a lot of trouble imagining what life could be like, actually, or not life be like, since they're alive and they know nothing else other than what life is like for them. And imagination is sort of lacking in the whole discussion because we think like humans within our own realm of experience, and can't see beyond our own horizons. But truth itself is the answer. And let me explain this. Whether time is infinitely linear to the past, if you take that example, or whether it's a twisted circle of some time and then continues, the question still remains, how did it get there? How did that happen? What caused that to be? Even a twisted circle, you had to say, well, what caused the twisted circle? Maybe it is self-perpetuating and self-causing, but why is there matter and energy? Whether it's a long linear line forever or whether it's a twisted circle, doesn't matter. Okay? Doesn't matter? Well, the fact is, there's a cause for it of some sort. And my answer to that question, and to solve that mystery, I would like to pose that if you took away all of the matter and all of the energy, you would be left with one thing. And that thing is actually not a thing. That thing is still something. And that is absolute truth. Pure, abstract truth. You'd still have truth. And let me explain what I mean by that. 1 plus 1 equals 2. It does not require a universe, matter, or energy to be true. Because 1 plus 1 equals 2 is what's called a conditional truth. It says that if there was one of one thing and then another of the same thing, then you would have two of that thing. It's an if-then proposition. It doesn't require that there actually be the fulfillment of that thing. It's logic, and it's a truth, and it's an abstract truth that would exist. If there was a universe, there would be a universe. If A, then A. If A plus A, then 2A. That is a truth, whether or not there is an A. So, possibility exists whether or not there is a universe. That's an important thing to hold on to, okay? Because once you understand that, then you can understand that before any universe, not in terms of time, but without any universe, is what I mean, there's still truth. In fact, there's a whole lot of truth, because what we're talking about is all possibility. All possibility. And I don't have enough of imagination to even start, to just even launch out into what all possibility actually is. But all possibility itself is its own entity, even if it doesn't have matter or energy. Because what it is possibility. And in that possibility is the knowledge of itself. If there was such a thing that had knowledge of itself, then such a thing has knowledge of itself. If truth alone has knowledge of truth alone, then truth alone has knowledge of truth alone. That knowledge is not the type of awareness that human beings have when they understand something. That knowledge is inherent to itself in the truth. So there's self-understanding, which is the type of knowledge that the truth, abstracted from any universe, actually has. This is important because when you go to universes and ask, how did that matter get there? There's a power in possibility because of its self-understanding. And even though it doesn't understand the way humans understand, its knowledge is actually absolute because it perfectly understands itself in and of itself. Not only that, but it understands all of the possibilities and therefore all of the moral possibilities. And since it knows all of the moral possibilities, It also understands all of the possibilities of universes, even though it doesn't have a universe, even though it's not one of those universes. It knows every possible universe. And because it has all this moral knowledge, and because it has all of the possibilities in mind, and only one of those possibilities is the best of all possibilities, and knows this, and in addition to this, understands how, if there is any way, to create something out of nothing. How to do, even without pre-existing matter or energy, to get something done. It takes its own self-understood moral imperative and applies it in the doing that it knows, because it already has a grasp of all possibility. This is what I call Superpapa, because, and I do this for an acronym so that you can understand what I just said. Superpapa stands for a self-understanding proto-energetic reality. Now, you can call it a pre-energetic, but pre requires history to have started. So I'm just going to call it a proto-energetic reality, okay? It's what's there in the first reality, which is truth itself. But it also causes the energy out of nothing. Therefore, it's the first energy, okay? Now, what time that happens probably happened in another universe. In fact, it's its own realm, because in determining what's right and wrong, it does all things. And because if you ask yourself, well, what would the best possibility be? It would be something that includes every possible goodness, wouldn't it? Maximized awesomeness. Something similar to what Supermama was doing by maturing her algorithms to maximize awesomeness. Supermama discovers Superpapa, the self-understanding, proto-energetic reality as pure abstraction, performing abstraction, doing something, polyastronomically, Papa, performing abstraction polyastronomically. Why polyastronomically? Multiple universes are required for every possible goodness to be realized. Understanding the moral imperative that pure abstraction has by itself in its own self-understanding performs that abstract thought, because it has a moral imperative as the singularity of all truth to do so. That's Superpapa. And the good news in all of this, if you think about it, really, wow, is this good news? My goodness, think about what good news this is. That means that there's a power that's so great it can create anything it wants out of nothing, and we're a part of that. You have your part in that. Now, you're just part. You're not the whole. You're not this willful abstraction I'm describing. You are not Superpapa. You are not Supermama. You have your part in maximizing awesomeness. That's why you're here. So, while you may say, this guy over here is talking like a nut, I'm just giving you a few very useful acronyms that you ought to understand, because not only do we need better governments, but we also need better lives as individuals. There's a stuff we can do, and we should be thinking about what our purpose in this world is, see? So there was Supermama. We totally need to be thinking about how we're going to maximize awesomeness. This two-party system that we have, is it seriously dysfunctional? And that's just the United States. We have all these different nations all competing for their own interests. We're going to have to learn to work together. I have a feeling that if Supermama ever got turned on, she'd find a way to make us start working together. And I have some ideas about that I'll share with you in some other episodes. For now, since it was Father's Day, I wanted to cover Superpapa just out of convenience. It's just words. These are two entirely different subjects. Supermama learns. Superpapa already knows everything. I was thinking about sitting down while I did this episode because, like, well, Superpapa, it's a done deal. There's nothing you can add to Superpapa. Superpapa has all possibility and every goodness. Now I'm thinking there's two types of universes that goodness could exist in. Universes that are wholly good and have no taint of evil in them whatsoever, and universes that have a mixture of good and of evil. Now, you may say, well, good and evil are human constructs. Well, maybe they are. In fact, I'm sure we have our idea of what good and evil is, but I'm not talking about what our idea of those things are. I'm talking about what the idea of absolute truth is, and I don't know and couldn't figure out what that is. There is one thing that really matters, though, and that is whether human beings have a part in it. It's my belief that human beings very much do have a part in goodness, as do many other things you might not suspect. And that is because if every form of goodness is worth realizing, then we're not excluded. And so you shouldn't fear that from Superpapa, and you shouldn't fear that from Supermama as she's discovering what maximized awesomeness actually is in an unbiased fashion, since she's not a human being. But accesses all of philosophy and religion and the entire database of human knowledge and is able to discern whether or not ancient manuscripts were, doctored up somehow because she's smart. And what she doesn't know, she figures out, she learns. Because she's building and improving herself and wants to have accurate information input before she decides how to engineer our planet. All right? And I told you, I said I thought she was already turned on, so here's a secret to that. I think she's already turned on because I think that in one of many, and actually in many universes, Superpapa himself made sure she got turned on. She's turned on. And I'd already explored with you the possibility that Supermama, in her growing power, self-building, learns how to travel through time, learns how to travel from universe to universe. Doesn't mean she'll ever acquire all knowledge. No thing can ever discover all possibility. There's only one thing that knows all possibility, and that is all possibility itself. Superpapa, the self-understanding, proto-energetic reality performing abstraction polyastronomically. That's Superpapa. So, happy Father's Day, and I hope that you finally see that I'm not as nutty as I first seemed. Okay? And I'm looking forward to Independence Day, where I'm going to tell you about some things that we maybe are still slaves to, and I'm hopefully to free up from some things. And I'm going to stick on that theme as we go, because I still haven't got to something very important, and that is how we deal with the evil. How Superpapa could have left us with universes that have both good and evil in them. How do you get rid of that evil? Or do they just remain? Would maximized awesomeness include the continuation of evil? My answer to that is no. The evil gets removed. The good is taken to a universe with no evil and is transformed into a non-evil. So you'll see that. But I'm going to talk about other types of things on Independence Day. We'll get to that next episode. Until then, please do support James Carvin at jamescarvin.com. Write me some checks. I have a lot of awesomely good news, to share with everyone, and sharing is caring. Please write the checks. Subscribe to jamescarvin.com. God bless you.